Okay.
Oh, I gotta say, got it. Okay.
Got it. All right. Hi, folks. I'm Lorene with Grasslands Gallery Online, and this is one in a series of interviews with artists who show with the gallery. I'm really pleased today to be here with Edie Marshall, who is one of the original Grasslands Gallery Online artists. I've known and worked with Edie for a number of years, and it's always been a real pleasure. So I'm really glad to welcome her here today. Welcome, Edie.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
I'm pleased to. Edie's a painter. I know her as a painter. And rather than me introducing her career, I thought maybe I would just leave that to her. So Edie, why don't we start with you telling us a bit about yourself, including where you come from?
Okay. Well, as you mentioned, I am a painter, and I received my degree in 2004 from the University of Saskatchewan in fine arts. And at the time I was working mostly in acrylic painting, but have moved on to oils mostly. My career has spanned from being in a rural area, which was our farm, and then moving to Regina, which is where I really got connected with the art community. Was very pleased to be active on the CARFAC board and at the Saskatchewan provincial level, but also at the national level. So I got to meet artists all across the country. And this was really, I think, important in my work, learning what other artists do and the advocacy that was needed and is still needed. So I was glad to be a part of that. I also had the opportunity to work at the Art Gallery of Regina at that time. And that was such a learning experience because not only did I get to meet a lot of artists, see how exhibitions were installed, but really got to understand the administrative part of running an art gallery. And so those are things now when I apply for galleries and things, is that I remember this, how it really works. So that was a good time. But, in all of that, I really missed being in a rural area, the quiet, the nature, the part of that really was about me. And so we moved to a little place called Riverhurst, Saskatchewan, about 7 years ago, I guess. And it's a lovely little village, 150 people most of the time. And it's beside Lake Diefenbaker. So it has this beautiful lake, the hills, surrounding hills and area. It's a farming community, which is what I'm familiar with from my early background. And it's also lots of grasslands and pasture areas, which I love to walk in.
Sounds wonderful. You and I have, sorry, you and I have a number of things in common. And one is, here is the commercial for CARFAC, Canadian Artist Representation. And in Saskatchewan, it's CARFAC Sask.
Yeah.
I got involved with CARFAC many years before you did, and my time on the board had stopped by the time yours started. But I can honestly say that the year that I first got involved changed my life because of the contacts I was able to make, the different ways of thinking, different ways of artists thinking I was able to experience. And I guess I would have to say, if anyone was looking for a way to have a wider experience as an artist, that's a really good place to start. Even if you decide not to take up the banner and work with CARFAC nationally, even just being a member is good. I was going to mention this to start with, but I forgot, and I live in a rural area, as Edie does, and sometimes my Wi-Fi behaves peculiarly. The only cure I've ever found for it not to create flashing lights is to turn off the video for a minute. So that's what I just did. And I, like Edie, moved to Valerie, Saskatchewan, moved to a rural area from Saskatoon and have found it just to be a wonderful move. So that's the commercial for artists who are wondering if you have to live in a city in order to have a successful art career. I guess we both think you don't, right?
Really not. Rural is a wonderful place to live.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. As you say, the quiet and the space and the surroundings. Do you remember, Edie, when you started making art? At what stage in your life you did?
Yes, I mean, I know a very cliched answer is I've made art all my life, which is true. But I do remember a moment or a time when I was gifted oil paints. I was about 10 years old. And I remember my first oil painting and how the paint worked and how exciting it was. And it's just something that's always stuck with me.
You didn't feel intimidated by these oil paint things.
No, not at the time. I think that happened later when it had to, look a certain way.
Ain't that the truth, though? It has to look a certain way. And of course, it doesn't have to look a certain way.
No, that's right. And a 10-year-old, I wasn't aware of that. It was just that enjoyment of doing it.
Yeah.
Or, I do remember that really well. But I also do remember making a painting that actually looked like something. And that was exciting too. They said, oh, I made this. I forget what it was. I think it was a still life. And thinking, oh, it kind of looks like that.
So you started using oil paints when you were 10.
Yeah.
And what brought you to doing a degree in art then?
Okay. Well, I guess I never forgot that experience of being creative. And I know I was always allowed to be creative in my home and my family. And then it was as a young mother, as a way to escape parenthood, I would start taking weekend workshops or day workshops, whatever I could manage to sneak away for. And sort of that started, got me restless almost, like this is something I wanted to do. I always felt I could do this well and I wanted to pursue it. So I think it was when my family was almost grown adults that I felt I could pursue a degree. So as a mature student, I went to the University of Saskatchewan, determined that this is what I wanted to do. Plus, then I would also realize that I could, it was a way for me through images to express things that I wanted to say about what was important to me.
And did you find that doing the degree gave you more latitude to express what you wanted to say?
Yes, I think I had more permission. I had more ideas about ways to do it. And also being in an environment with other students and teachers, professors, that it opened up a new world for me, actually, I think. And that was probably one of the best experiences of my life. The pivoting, the changing point of my life was probably those years studying art seriously.
That's wonderful. It's exciting even to think about in retrospect, I think.
Yeah, it is.
What kinds of art do you make? You said you're a painter,
Yes.
but
Well,
you have different subjects and different ways of seeing the subjects.
um, most of my work, I would say, is about the land, the landscape, and in particular, the prairie landscape. It's all kind of based around that. And I think that I have been trying to be sensitive to the history that's here, the culture, and the environment, and those to the place that I call home, and probably it gives me ideas and sort of a reference point of what's important to me. So that's something I do. But I do, there's so many different ways I approach it. I was thinking that, how I do. I mean, I've made many more abstracted paintings, and that's sort of when I'm thinking about a different concept of making art. And I can get very representational when I really want to point out something or depict something in a very more of a close-up way or defined way. And then I love narrative painting, which is a way to tell a story. And then much like the one that's behind me, titled Hope, and sort of more a story, a way of approaching art through storytelling. And I think a lot of that Prairie Remains series is about that.
I'm very pleased to host some of your works in the Prairie Remains series on the website, on the Grasslands Gallery on website. And when an entirely online gallery briefly turned into an in real life gallery at Art Now Saskatchewan Fine Art Fair in Saskatoon this fall, I know the work got a lot of attention from viewers, because I think we've all of us on the prairies have had that experience of seeing the houses that have collapsed and wondering about the experience of the house, about the people who lived in it, and what the story behind that no longer functioning building.
Yes, and more for, I think in some ways they've almost become a metaphor for that collapse and for what we see happening to the prairies, and the way of life that is no longer there anymore. And so I sort of think that maybe, hopefully, maybe viewers can see them at different levels of meaning into them at times. But that sort of immediate, yeah, this reminds me of my home or my grandparents' home or something is good.
Betsy Rosenwald is also an artist with Grasslands Gallery Online, and she has been inspired in a different way by those buildings. Her paintings don't represent them, but she said when she first saw them, she wondered, did the inhabitants just finish breakfast one day and walk away? And I guess that's something we'll never know, but your paintings of those buildings have that haunted and haunting quality, and they're a real pleasure to look at.
Thank you.
Here I am flashing again, so I'll just see if I can fix it again. The gallery hosts another one of your landscape series called Terrain, and you don't have an example behind you, but do you want to talk about them a little bit, where they came from?
Oh, okay. Yes, and the intention was we were going to do a road trip through the Great Northern Plains, and this was in winter, and I was hoping it was a chance to see something other than snow. And as it turned out, we saw a fair bit of snow, but it did work into lots of beautiful grassland areas and preserved areas, as well as we went into the desert areas. So the terrain changed a lot. And I started just taking photos randomly. And at that point, I had an iPhone that was new enough that the photos weren't distorted. They were clear. So this was exciting. And so different lenses I was going through, the lens of my glasses, the lens of the windshield, and the lens of my phone. So there already the landscape had changed. But nonetheless, when I looked through these, when I got home, I saw this pattern of colors and how the land changed, the terrain changed. And I had maybe 1,500 or so photos. And a friend of mine, just in asking as a joke, I think, said, well, I suppose you're going to paint those. And I got thinking, well, why don't I? So I set the challenge and I did it. And it was first shown at the Art Gallery of Regina in 2015 and 2016.
And you've had some news about some works from that series recently. Do you want to tell us about that? You have a new exhibiting opportunity.
Yeah. The Slate Gallery is interested in showing some of these for their upcoming Saturnalia show. So I will be taking probably a couple of them. She'll show a couple of them coming up.
Slate Gallery, for anyone watching this who doesn't know it, is another one of the very good galleries in Saskatchewan. except it's an entirely in-person gallery, and Grasslands Gallery Online is an entirely online art gallery. And some art galleries have notions about exclusivity, and they don't want their artists to be showing other places. But my gallery doesn't think that way. I really believe that the more people can see artists, the work of artists, the better it is for all of us. It isn't a matter of hoarding. It's a matter of sharing as much as possible. So congratulations on that show, Edie. I hope it's a big success and leads to new stuff.
Thank you. I hope so too.
So you're obviously passionate about your subject and you love your materials. What is it that keeps you in love with both, with what you do?
That's a very good question. And I would say I love the color. I love paint because of color and what color can do and what I can do with it. And the little surprises I will get along the way, and you know, just excitement when I see something that's working with color. And I guess I also just love how the paint moves, how, you know, the buttery feeling of oil paint, and how you can move it around, and just that very visceral thing that goes with that, I think. And I don't know, it's also exciting for me to start a painting. I really find that thrilling, just to say, oh, the potential of what could be here. And, you know, or the ideas that, you know, if I have an idea, that excitement of, you know, putting it onto canvas, onto the paper.
That's great. And what do you continue to find challenging about it?
Oh, always challenges. When it's not working, and why isn't it working?
So what do you mean not working? What does that
Well,
mean to you?
when I'm looking at something I'm doing, and it starts to get to be a struggle, and something doesn't feel right about it, like it's not conveying what I want to say, or maybe I had too much of an idea of what the end product should be, instead of listening to just the process of where, allowing it to go, and or overworking it sometimes, and, you know, going past where I should have stopped. And that's a challenge too, I think. Should I stop now? Is it finished? And always, you know, looking back, is it good enough? You know, those sort of questions that I have to ask. So those are real challenges, I think. But as far as I'm comfortable working with oils, I never worry about what's going to happen. I have a good idea, like when I mix a couple of colors, what they might turn out to be. But there's always surprises.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, oil is my medium of
yeah.
choice as well. And I think I know how to mix colors. And then sometimes I think, did I think I knew anything about how this paint works? Because like everything we do, it takes an ocean sometimes that we can't control. I guess my last question is, what do you hope people find in what you make?
Well, I guess I like the response of a viewer to be something very visceral, and to something that draws them to the painting, but they're maybe not quite sure what it is. Sort of that initial response. I like that to be something that, you know, gets them there. And then if, you know, if afterwards sort of an intellectual, you know, more of a closer examination, and they see something that either resonates with them, or a memory, or they say, oh, I think I know what she's doing, or this is what I think it is, you know, according to their experience, of course. And so those are the things that I think for me are important.
Well, that's wonderful. That is the end of my formal questions. I'm just going to fix my video one more time. The only reason to live in the city is to have better internet. Is there anything you'd like to add? Anything I've missed?
I don't think so, except that I it's always been a pleasure being a part of your gallery.
Well,
That has just been such an exciting, wonderful experience. And even the title Grasslands, I love, because that's where I live too. And so I feel that I belong. And thank you for that.
well, thank you for being a part of it. It means a lot to me to have people with the gallery who are so supportive. The artists who I work with are wonderful to work with. I was telling people at Art Now that the gallery's tagline is beautiful Saskatchewan art. And the part that isn't written is made by wonderful human beings. that's the truth. That's the absolute truth. Well,
You are
thank you so
doing,
much. Sorry.
so I was just going to say that, and you are doing a wonderful job. And I'm sure it's very difficult and challenging and takes up a lot of your time, but I'm very appreciative of what you're doing.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you so much for saying so. And thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it. I know you're going away for a few months shortly, so I'm glad you could take the time. I'll wind up the TV show here, and I'll just get you to stick around for a few minutes afterwards. Okay. Thank you so much. It's